Have you ever trusted someone so completely that you believed they could never hurt you? That was how Ruth felt about her best friend, Clara. But in the bustling city where dreams and desires clash, even the deepest trust can be shattered. Ruth and Clara were inseparable. They had been friends since their university days and had supported each other through thick and thin. Ruth was the dependable one, smart, ambitious, and caring. She had married Daniel, her college sweetheart, and together they built a beautiful life. Daniel was a successful architect, and Ruth worked as a marketing executive at a prestigious firm. They lived in a luxurious apartment in one of the city's most sought-after neighborhoods, with their two lively children completing the perfect picture. Clara, on the other hand, was still trying to find her footing. After losing her job a year ago, she struggled to keep up with the fast-paced city life. She rented a tiny studio apartment and relied on freelance gigs to pay her bills. Deep down, Clara envied Ruth. She wanted the life Ruth had, the loving husband, the comfortable home, and the respect that came with success. It all started innocently enough. One Friday evening, Ruth invited Clara over for dinner. The aroma of freshly baked lasagna filled the apartment, and laughter echoed through the living room as Ruth's kids played with their toys. Clara sat on the couch, sipping a glass of red wine, her eyes wandering over the elegant decor. "You've done so well for yourself, Ruth," Clara said, forcing a smile. Ruth beamed. "We've worked hard, Clara. But you get there too. You just need to keep pushing." Clara nodded, but her smile faded the moment Ruth turned away. That night, as she lay in her cramped apartment, Clara's thoughts spiraled. Why does she have everything while I have nothing? I deserve a life like hers. Over the next few weeks, Clara began to visit Ruth more frequently. She offered to help with the kids, brought homemade meals, and even helped Daniel plan a surprise birthday party for Ruth. Ruth was touched by Clara's thoughtfulness. "You're like a sister to me, Clara," Ruth said one evening. Clara smiled, but her heart burned with envy. She had studied Ruth's life closely, the way she managed her family, her work, and her marriage. Clara wanted it all, and she was willing to do whatever it took to get it. One evening, as they sat on the balcony overlooking the city skyline, Clara made a suggestion. "Ruth, you're always so busy. Why don't I help you out more often? I can pick up the kids from school or run errands for you. You need to rest sometimes." Ruth hesitated. "That's so kind of you, Clara. But I don't want to burden you." "It's no burden at all. I'm happy to help," Clara insisted. Touched by Clara's offer, Ruth agreed. Clara's visits became more frequent, and soon she was practically part of the family. Daniel appreciated her help and often praised her for being so reliable. But Ruth began to notice small things, how Clara lingered when talking to Daniel or how she seemed overly interested in their private conversations. "She's just being helpful," Ruth told herself, pushing aside her doubts. One evening, Clara arrived with a beautifully wrapped box. "What's this?" Ruth asked, smiling. "A specialty set. I saw it at a shop and thought of you," Clara replied. Ruth was touched. She invited Clara to join her for tea that night. As they sipped the warm brew, Ruth began to feel strange. Her head spun, and her vision blurred. "Ruth, are you okay?" Clara asked, feigning concern. I feel," Ruth's voice trailed off as she collapsed. Daniel rushed home from work when Clara called him, sobbing. Ruth fainted. "I don't know what happened," she cried. By the time they reached the hospital, it was too late. Ruth had passed away. The doctors attributed it to a sudden, unexplained heart condition. Daniel was devastated, and the children were inconsolable. Clara stepped in immediately, offering to help. She moved into the guest room to assist with the kids and household chores. Daniel, overwhelmed with grief, welcomed her support. "Thank you, Clara. I don't know what I'd do without you," he said one evening. Clara smiled. "I'm here for you, Daniel. Always." Weeks turned into months, and Clara's presence in the home became permanent. She started making subtle changes, redecorating the living room, rearranging the kitchen, and even replacing Ruth's favorite dishes with her own recipes. Neighbors began to whisper. "Isn't it strange how quickly Clara moved in?" one said. "She's too comfortable. It's almost like she was waiting for this," another added. But Daniel, blinded by grief and gratitude, ignored the rumors. He began to rely on Clara more, confiding in her and leaning on her for support. One evening, as they sat in the living room, Daniel looked at Clara with a mix of gratitude and something deeper. "You've been incredible, Clara. I don't know how we'd have survived without you." Clara reached out and placed her hand on his. "I'll always take care of you, Daniel. You and the kids mean the world to me." In that moment, Clara felt a surge of triumph. She had taken Ruth's place, and no one suspected a thing. But secrets have a way of surfacing, and Clara's web of lies was about to unravel. Months had passed since Ruth's sudden death, and Clara had fully integrated herself into the home she once envied. She cooked meals in Ruth's kitchen, read bedtime stories to her children, and even began redecorating the apartments to suit her taste. To the outside world, Clara appeared to be a savior, a selfless friend helping a grieving family. But Clara knew the truth. She had stolen Ruth's life, and she wasn't going to let anyone take it away from her. Daniel had grown closer to Clara over time. The kids adored her, and he found comfort in her presence. One evening, as they sat on the balcony, Daniel hesitated before speaking. "Clara, I don't know how to say this, but you've been my rock. The kids love you, and so do I," he said, his voice trembling with emotion. Clara's heart raced. This was the moment she had been waiting for. "Daniel, I care about you too," she replied, taking his hand. Within weeks, Clara had moved from the guest room into the master bedroom. Daniel officially introduced her to friends and colleagues as his partner. But while Clara was basking in her victory, cracks in her perfect facade began to show. One of Ruth's closest friends, Angela, had always been wary of Clara. Something about her sudden presence in the home didn't sit right. Angela started asking questions, piecing together details that didn't add up. "She's too perfect," Angela muttered to herself one evening. "Nobody moves on that quickly, especially not after losing someone like Ruth." Angela decided to investigate. She visited the tea shop where Clara claimed to have bought the tea set for Ruth and discovered they didn't sell the type of tea Ruth had consumed that fateful night. Her suspicions deepened. Clara began to notice Angela's probing. Whenever Angela visited, she asked subtle but pointed questions about Ruth's final days. Clara felt the walls closing in. One night, as Daniel slept, Clara rummaged through the kitchen, looking for any remaining traces of the poisoned tea. She burned the tea bags and buried the ashes in the trash chute, her hands trembling. Angela is just being nosy, Clara told herself. She has no proof. But Clara couldn't shake the feeling that Angela was onto her. While Clara was busy managing Angela's suspicions, she overlooked a critical detail: Ruth's children. The eldest, 6-year-old Emma, began to ask questions. "Aunt Clara, why did Mommy drink that tea?" Emma asked one afternoon. Clara froze. "What do you mean, Emma?" "She didn't like that tea. I remember. She said it tasted funny," Emma replied innocently. Clara forced a smile. "Oh, sweetie, you must be confused. Your mommy loved that tea." But Emma's words planted seeds of doubt in Daniel's mind. That evening, as Clara cooked dinner, Daniel found himself replaying Emma's comment. Ruth had always been particular about her tea. Could something have been wrong? Unable to ignore her suspicions, Angela decided to confront Daniel. She invited him to lunch and hesitated before speaking. "Daniel, I know this might be hard to hear, but I think you need to take a closer look at Clara," Angela said cautiously. Daniel frowned. "What are you saying, Angela? She's been nothing but supportive. Have you ever wondered why she moved in so quickly? Or why Ruth's death seemed so sudden? I've done some digging, and I think Clara might know more than she's letting on." Daniel was furious. "Angela, this is ridiculous. Clara has been a blessing to my family. Please don't insult her." Angela sighed. "Just think about it, Daniel. For Ruth's sake." Angela's words gnawed at Daniel. That night, after Clara fell asleep, he searched the apartment for anything out of place. In the back of the pantry, he found a small vial with a strange powder. "What is this?" he whispered, his heart pounding. The next morning, Daniel took the vial to a lab for testing. When the results came back, his world shattered. The powder contained traces of a rare poison. Daniel waited until the kids were at school to confront Clara. "What is this, Clara?" he demanded, holding up the lab report. Clara's face paled. "Daniel, I don't know what that is. Someone must be trying to frame me. Don't lie to me, Clara. You've been in this house, acting like Ruth, taking over her life. Did you poison her?" Tears streamed down Clara's face. "I didn't mean for it to happen. I just wanted to help, to be close to you. I didn't mean to hurt anyone." Daniel stared at her in disbelief. "Get out. I never want to see you again." Clara packed her things and left, but the damage was done. Daniel struggled to come to terms with what had happened. He reached out to Angela, apologizing for not believing her sooner. Together, they pieced together the timeline of events and realized the extent of Clara's deceit. The authorities were notified, and Clara was arrested. During her trial, she confessed to everything: the envy, the poison, and her plan to take over Ruth's life. The city buzzed with news of the trial, and Ruth's story became a cautionary tale about trust and betrayal. Daniel, with Angela's help, focused on rebuilding his life and protecting his children. As for Clara, she spent her days in a prison cell, haunted by the life she had destroyed.